Hello, welcome back to another StudyingWorks lesson. Today we will be discussing City on a Hill and how it correlates to American Exceptionalism. Here you have a picture of John Winthrop, who delivered the sermon, and here you have the idea of manifest destiny, the idea that it was America's desire, that it was America's duty to spread from sea to shining sea. What is American exceptionalism? Basically, it's the idea that the U.S. is not only different in its ideals and system of government, but is unique in those regards, like its views of we are all equal under the law, we believe in liberty and equality, we're essentially, we believe, the first democracy. And what is the City Upon a Hill sermon? Well, it's actually titled A Model of Christian Charity, but it was delivered by John Winthrop in 1630, as Puritans pretty much run the colonies, and the overall message of the sermon is that they must work hard and retain the love of God in order to succeed as a colony and set an example to the rest of the world. And so here's the quote itself that we're going to be discussing. For we must consider that we shall be as a city upon a hill. The eyes of all people are upon us, so that if we shall deal falsely with our God in this work we have undertaken, and so cause him to withdraw our present help from us, we shall be made a story and a byword for the world. We shall open the mouths of enemies to speak evil of the ways of God and all professors for God's sake. We shall shame the faces of many of God's worthy servants, and cause their prayers to be turned into curses upon us until we be consumed out of good land whither we are going. And so, as you read this quote, but especially whatever excerpt or part of the sermon you're assigned in class, or even the whole thing, which is kind of long, really think about what is the message that Winthrop is delivering. What's the historical differences between the principles that the Puritans had and that Winthrop believed in versus the ones that we have today? There are a lot of stark differences in the Puritans' extreme adherence to religious law versus our mostly secular nation. So that's really a good contrast if you got, a potential college board prompt on that. Many Puritans believed that God was on their side and would bless them into a successful colony that sets an example for the rest of the world if they carried out God's work properly. And that includes Winthrop. They ended up being relatively successful, but declined due to their extreme religious practices, and as well as the fact that, the church wasn't exactly really being as popular as it used to be. The descendants were kind of disillusioned with it, and it went to other congregationalist preachers like Whitefield and Edwards in the Great Awakening. On a related note, many Americans believe that this country was chosen by God as an example to the rest of the world as well. And this is kind of similar to the idea that God was on their side for Puritans, but many Americans believe that the U.S. is that example for the rest of the world because it's the first modern democracy. We have a constitution that's completely set in law, and that was the first one to do that, and we're the first modern nations built on the principles of freedom and equality under the law, as we previously stated earlier. And so this ideal of a city upon a hill, and that example that the Puritans wanted to be, is kind of an idea that many Americans have of their country, which isn't necessarily a good or bad thing, and whether or not this country is a city upon a hill is certainly a question worth pondering. The U.S. has made tremendous strides in liberty and democracy and the law for its times. The American Revolution set off revolutions in other countries, but the U.S. also has its fair share of horrible deeds, slavery, Jim Crow, arguably imperialism, and foreign wars that were arguably done for the lie of spreading democracy, but really ended up not necessarily doing that. And so the idea of a shining city upon a hill has gained more discussion in recent years. Like, can this country still be one? Is it still one? And it's one worth debating. There's no right or wrong answer. Here. But If you were ever to get a prompt on from the College Board about it, you could really analyze the U.S.'s historical deeds and whether or not it adds up to an example for the country, and by arguing it well and using some good contrasts and showcasing other historical things like cause and effect, contrast to change over time for the United States, you could probably write a really solid essay. Thank you for watching. If you have any remaining questions, please leave them in the comments below. Thank you.